Manzanillo Bay, Port of Cristobal, City of Colón, Caribbean coast in Panama. It is 10 hours. This is a regular day, with ships coming and going. One of those ships, a tanker, the Pana Bunker 2, is sailing in the middle of the Manzanillo Bay. It is heading towards one of its many client ships anchored in the Anchorage area. We're talking about the largest port hub in Latin America as far as container movement is concerned. However, something has happened aboard this tanker. The alarm whistles are heard. There has been an oil spill. 50 barrels of diesel fuel. The captain has proceeded to issue a report over the radio to the control tower and to the safety officer of his shipbuilding company announcing the emergency. The ship has started to implement its measures and procedures, trying to mitigate the situation. Soon they realize that the situation is overwhelming. External support is required, quick and efficient support. Otherwise, the spill threatens to spread all over the bay and to nearby beaches. There is the feeling that the 1980 catastrophe could happen again. Back then, hundreds of tons reached the bay when a storage tank collapsed and it overflowed. For weeks, the calm Caribbean waters turned into a black sea, a thick black oil layer. It took months to clean it up. Ecological damage was incalculable. Today, Panama is a country that bets on its cruise ship tourism and its ecological richness, its beaches, the vegetation of its coasts, its fish fauna, its seabirds, that are its main attractions. It is easy to understand the disastrous repercussions that an oil spill would represent nowadays. Sensitivity maps for the coastal zones, priorities for protection, the diverse scenarios for oil spills. All of it demands prevention work and an updated organization for its service. The spill begins to take dimensions. In view of the situation, the shipbuilding company makes a decision to communicate the emergency to those in Panama with the responsibility to provide the first response in the case of an oil spill or the spill of any other type of contaminant. In Panama, the National Maritime Authority has assigned this task to Ocean Pollution Control, which is responsible for the containment of spills in their Tier 1-2 levels in the port zones and the territorial waters of the Republic of Panama. Let us listen to the CEO of Ocean Pollution Control in charge of it.
Ocean Pollution Control is a Panamanian company operating through a concession with the National Maritime Authority in Panama since 1997. Our main job is to carry out daily inspections related to oil spills within port limits and other critical areas of Panama's territorial waters. Once a spill is detected and evaluated in conjunction with authorities, we proceed to contain the product and commence recovery actions. We own and operate equipment required to respond promptly to Tier 1 and Tier 2 incidents. However, for major spills of Tier 3 nature, we have in place working alliances with international companies for additional equipment and technical support.
The call alerting about the situation is received in the closest OPC, Ocean Pollution Control base. The operation begins then. The contingency plan for what seems to be occurring at the technical nomenclature is activated a Tier 1 level, one that calls for local support. A Tier 2 level is for a larger spill, and a Tier 3 calls for support from international alliances due to the high degree of requirements. Ocean Pollution Control has these 3 tier levels, the last with international agreements. Notifications on the situation go to the key players. The spill is assessed, the strategies to contain and control the spill, the mobilization of resources, a cost and net environmental benefit analysis, known for its acronym in English NEBA, the operation in itself, and finally, the demobilization, are key stages that appear in all this process in the struggle against the spill.
La función del jefe de operación es coordinar.
The role of the chief of operations is to coordinate the experts, means, and equipment. His role is essential at the internal level, but he also coordinates any external means that may be placed at his disposal.
The Chief of Operation holds a preliminary meeting with a team of experts and activates the procedure. He informs of the situation and issues instructions for the beginning of the operation. The information that is received becomes the crucial factor. What type of risks results from the oil spill? How it is visualized and what is presumed will be the movement of the spill based on wind and current conditions. What is the background knowledge of previous spills and their effects on the affected zone? Notifications have been issued. Authorities involved. First of all, the Ports Control Tower, then the National Maritime Authority, the safety officer of the shipbuilding company of the ship involved in the accident, local authorities for possible support. It is time for the assessment of the oil spill, perhaps the most delicate, because of what is to come next. Where and when did the spill occur? What type of fuel or crude is involved in it? What is it like? How much was spilled? The affected area, prevailing sea and wind conditions, the direction that the spill is taking. It is clear to all the basic need to learn if it's crude or refined petroleum byproducts, fuel, diesel, lubricants, asphalts, kerosene, each of them with different physical and chemical characteristics. Some will evaporate, become fragmented, emulsified, dispersed, become sediments, biodegrade, react, and thus will cause an effect at different times and under variable conditions. After the situation has been assessed, a minimum of inputs have been obtained to take a rational action in line with the emergency. Let us recall that the entire operation will imply costs that those responsible, in other words, insurance companies or others, will have to assume when the time comes.
Although no means are spared at the time of the assessment, and we resort to everything that is available to us, it is evident that costs begin to add up, and finally they will have to be covered. The efficiency of the operation goes hand in hand with common sense and rationality in the decision-making process.
All of this involves constant monitoring and evaluation. This includes the pertinent means and software programs. Time has come to use the means that were offered. The idea is to mobilize the necessary resources.
This is a pre-announced Tier 1 type of exercise that allows for a maximum deployment of physical means and equipment, which have been prioritized.
In fact, soon there is a gathering of many equipment and experts at the operational headquarters. There is floating, air, ground equipment, means of containment, barriers or booms, and recovery, skimmers. In regard to floating equipment, there is the flagship Sea Level, especially adapted and remodeled to fight this type of catastrophes. The captain gives instructions. The chief of operations will work from the ship. The vessel has been specially modified in 2001 and its displacement is up to 220 tons. Its length is 40 meters and its beam is 11 meters with a 6-foot draft. Its propulsion consists of two 450 horsepower Caterpillar 3412 power engines, which allows it to reach a sustained speed of 12 knots. But in addition, there are speedboats to transfer expert personnel. A larger ship with its skimmer, a pump that suctions the spill, removing the fuel from the sea and transferring it to temporary tanks, and its containment barrier known as boom, OPC-3. Two smaller crafts with capacity for transferring, dragging, and equipped with these booms, OPC-1 and OPC-6. With regard to aircraft, Ocean Pollution Control counts with the emergency support of Hughes 500D helicopters with 3 hours flight autonomy, a speed of 120 knots and 15,000 feet of altitude, providing versatility and a visual field that is essential to control the situation. With regard to ground means, for this event, The company has fuel trucks to evacuate and temporarily store the containment liquid, a task that cannot be ruled out in the event of large spills, because a coordinated logistic is required, one that will eventually demand the support of means from the community. Cranes and tow trucks support the operation. More than 2,500 feet of boom, the containment barrier that will be extended in the sea around the damaged ship and in sensitive places along the coast. Finally, the vital communication equipment. An adequate coordination would be impossible without the efficiency of such equipment. But all of this equipment would be useless without skilled professional personnel trained in this type of emergencies. Decisions are made once the means to be used are defined. The vessels begin to depart. From the OPC warehouses, the boom connected in several stretches is withdrawn to place them around the vessel that can carry them. One can see the booms with their orange color that makes them stand out in the sea on their way to the site of the damage. At the site, the oil spill keeps spreading. It must be stopped. In order to prevent contaminating the water, we have chosen to use sawdust, which behaves similarly adrift, as well as oranges for easy visualization. A chief for the spill area has been designated. Once aboard the damaged ship, he determines the dimension of the problem and indicates the way to connect the boom to form a circle to prevent the spill from spreading. The task is not easy and demands marine skills from the experts. The circle begins to take shape around the damaged ship. The other vessels keep coming and going. In fact, the decision was made to use Sea Level's own boom, quickly withdrawn from the ship's stern and taken to the area of the mishap using smaller boats. The information sent from the helicopter is crucial. It keeps flying over the area of the accident. Its reports are constant, and this allows the chief of operations to assign the right means and equipment for the situation. In spills of large dimensions outside ports areas, it is possible to even use aerial photographs, even satellite images, as the case may be, just like they were used during the recent case of the Prestige of the coast of Galicia. One of the visual reports indicates that part of the oil spill has spread beyond the circle and is floating with the wind and the currents in the direction of a nearby beach. It is urgent to place barriers to prevent it from reaching the coast. One of the boats, the OPC-6, is going in the direction of the beach and is spreading a circle with a yellow boom that prevents the spill from reaching the coast. Soon, this front is reported as covered. The oil spill has not reached the coast. The fierce sight of sands, rocks, birds covered with black oily remains will not happen this time. In the area of the accident, the circle has been completed and now steps are being taken to open it with the help of speed boats. A bigger vessel, the OPC-3, will go through there with a skimmer, oil suction pump, which begins to work taking the oil through hoses to the tanks aboard the ship. It has been decided to also use the skimmer of the Sea Level. The operation is not simple. Its lowering begins with the crane at stern. The personnel handles it with the slings. Let us not forget that this operation takes place in the sea. Its greatest potential has been decisive in the decision of its use. The efficiency will be different now. We're talking about a capacity of 100 tons per hour and of an efficiency of 98% free of water. A metallic arm helps it in its maneuver on the starboard side. The operation is not easy. The personnel shows their expertise. All the resources and equipment have been mobilized and are operating. An hour and a half has gone by since the start of the spill exercise. The times are satisfactory. Aerial and maritime visual reports received do not indicate that there are new oil leaks. The chief of the spill area reports that the leak has been controlled in the damaged ship. It is time for demobilization. The chief of operation orders a series of maneuvers with the vessels in order to rise the skimmers. the dismantling of the booms, and later on, the return to the base. The Chief of Operations received the OK from the base following the pertinent notifications. The situation has been controlled.
The exercise ends and accomplishes its objective of controlling the spillage within the right time and adequate manner. The time will come for the reports and the final evaluation. It has been a new experience for the personnel and a confirmation of the technical validity of the equipment that was used. The training level must never be neglected. Large investments in equipment are no good unless their validity can be confirmed periodically.
With the docking of the sea level, the exercise comes to an end. Planning, logistics, financing, communications have been essential elements. The participation of the safety personnel of the company of the damaged ship, of the local and central authorities, of the entire community, in the end will be those responsible for the success of the operation. For this, an efficient, flexible organizational structure has been required. Personnel with clear roles and completely familiar with them. Clear, precise communications and effective leadership. Ocean Pollution Control, a Latin American and Panamanian enterprise with necessary and efficient equipment, with the latest technology, with professional